Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are here today with an eminent panel to have a discussion on the evolution of customer experience, finding the ideal balance between automation and human interaction. Uh, for the past few years, we have seen the buzz of automation, machine learning, AI. However, we will check with our expert, we'll speak with experts who understand what is the thin line between implementing AI and actual human interactions which we face during our day-to-day life while we deal with our businesses, right? So, I starting this discussion, and the first question I will have for Ms. Archana Sinha from Reliance Jio. So, Archana, Reliance Jio is at the forefront of India's revolution and has a vast customer base spanning diverse demographics. How do you ensure that automation in CX enhances customer engagement without compromising the personal touch that is crucial for home business sector?
Thank you, Uday. Thank you for the question. See, if we look at Reliance Jio with more than 450 million mobile subscribers, 12 million broadband subscribers, in an organization like this, technology automation is obviously a choice, but rather than a choice, it is also a necessity. Now, what it solves for us is scalability with the kind of volumes we have. It also takes care of digital availability presence 24/7. And also the thrust is on customer empowerment. So there are a lot of tools which we have built in to ensure that we are there for the customers by giving the tool right in their hands. So we are on the forefront of technology and automation. Having said that, I'll come to the second piece of the question, which is how do we ensure that there is no compromise on personal touch and rather human touch, what you meant. So I'll just set the context with one of the movies which I watched some time back. The movie is from Disney, and it's a Inside Out movie. And in this movie, it's about a teenage girl, and it talks about emotions. Now, primarily, there are 5 kind of emotions which we talk about, and out of 5, 4 are negative. So what are they? So obviously the fear, sadness, disgust, and anger. And there is one emotion which is of happy emotion, which is joy. Now, if you look at the kind we are designed, so we are designed to have, more of negative emotions. So complaint is something which are bound to happen, no matter how you set up your processes. We are also, so I am also a customer of a lot of brands, and let me tell you, it's really difficult to keep your customers happy all the time. So what we are doing, if you look at telecom will typically the fault rate or the complaints would range from 8 to less than 5%. For less than 5% for those where the processes are really established. So what it tells is out of 100, almost 5% will call you repeatedly, and they will also have a complaint. While the base will be dynamic, it won't be a static base. So it will, on a rolling basis, your complaining customer would change, right? So to keep the balance, I'll just give you 2 examples from Reliance Jio. The way we have designed our algorithm, it is designed in a way. So for example, Uday, if you are one of the customers and you are a broadband user, home business is primarily air fiber and geo fiber, I would know each and everything about your service performance, whether it is degrading, it is disrupting. So as an organization, as a business, I will know. What we have done is intelligently through the algorithm. So if Uday is calling me as in reaching out to us for the second time, if you are a repeat caller, we do away with all the automations straight away to the advisor. Advisors are trained enough. Obviously, their standard operating processes are very different from when you reach for the first time, right? Generally, first timers, you will find solution right through the automation. It could be chatbot, it could be your IVRs or your voice bot. So we know that a customer who is complaining will have peak of emotions, and the emotions would be largely anger, disgust, and sadness. And that's where we have invested in advisors. That's first example. I'll also give you the second example. So generally, typically a customer who is a broadband user, okay, having a STB or an OTTs. See, in fact, I was also discussing with my co-panelists during the break time that we can skip a meal, but doing away with internet as less as 30 seconds will be really difficult for us. So for a broadband users, what we have done is, through, as I said, the system would let me know even before the customer realizes, if he's not on internet at that point in time, that your internet is gone or there is a disruption, okay? And we have brought in in fact, the entire service tool of proactive ticketing. What does it mean? As a customer, you don't have to reach out, or maybe the gap when you reaches out to me, and obviously as a business, I know that your services are not working. I'll create a proactive ticket for you. I'm very clear as a business that this particular fault type will not be resolved by troubleshooting or DIY steps. I know that. I'm sending an engineer. The engineer will go and resolve the fault. So it's obviously a journey. We are trying to take step by step to ensure. But these are the two things which we are doing to ensure that specifically for those set of customers who are having problems, we invest and we give them a human touch. Also at this point in time, I will say, see, the generation, if you look at, like millennials, so we are like millennials and a generation before, we believed in a lot of software aspect, lot of gestures, good gestures, lot of talk. We would enjoy that. But if you look at the generation, which is Gen Z, they want to keep things very discreet, brief. They don't actually, so the customer needs are also changing, and that's how we need to have a constant feedback mechanism. So we call it fast feedback loops. After every transaction, you are taking the feedback from the customer. Has to be real time, because the more you delay, the need is dynamic. So obviously it will change. So the fast feedback loops translating into fast action loops will give the best result out of that. I hope this makes sense.
Absolutely, Archana. And it was great, that connotation of the movie which you have presented. And with the kind of business you are running, and the current age where roti kapda makan to hai, but internet is also very important, and managing customer expectation in this industry is very critical. So hats off for that. Thanks for that, Archana. And we'll move to our next panelist, Mr. Sandeep Singh Sachdeva from Snapdeal. Sandeep, e-commerce platforms like Snapdeal often rely heavily on automation for efficiency, yet customers expect personalized and responsive service. How does Snapdeal manage the trade-off between automation and human touch, especially during critical touch points like disputes, returns, or replacements?
Very interesting question, and I'll first ask people this question. Many of us are using mobile phones, so you'll know that if you have a problem, would you like to call somebody? How many of us would like to call somebody if we have a problem? Very few. Or you want to solve it on your phone? Phone? Yeah. So, it depends upon what the problem is, right? If it is a vanilla problem, or let's say straight through problem, my broadband is not working, like ma'am said, I am able to run diagnostics, which she taught me how to do some time back. I run that, and if I get to know that what the problem is and I sort it, I don't need anybody else. I'm a savvy customer. I understand how to work with this product, and the flow works beautifully. Now, there will be some flows which will be slightly more complex. For example, if you ordered a product on e-commerce and you're waiting for your product, you go, you check, you find that okay, the product is 2 days away or 1 day away, or on Blinkit it is 10 minutes away. We understand it, it works well, great. But there can be another situation where I ordered something and I received something else, and that is where I want to complain either on, maybe the quality of the product was not up to the expectation, and I want somebody to listen and then either improve on it or do something about it, or maybe both. And that is where the complex system comes into picture. It also comes into picture based on whether my customer is a Mumbaiker, a Delhiite, or he's sitting in Badaयूं. We were talking about another city. So Badaयूं is one, a tier 4 or a tier 5 city where people, when you will speak to them, they will not, the only thing that they can understand is while talking. You cannot explain them over the app that you need to do these 5 steps to get to a solution. So to answer that question in two ways, you segment the customer and you segment the problem. Educated, easy problem. It has to be an AI, it has to be a self-service, it can be FAQ, it can be few steps done, and we're good to go. The more complex and difficult the problem, and more internet non-savvy customer or the person who is using it for the first time, it has to be a human touch, and that is the balance that we'll always have to keep. So we at Snapdeal, we open up all our lines, so a customer sitting in Badaयूं doesn't have to go through the app to do all that. He will have a phone number, he'll call me and he'll get his solution. Whereas somebody sitting in a savvy environment will probably do the same thing on an app flawlessly. I hope that answered.
Absolutely. And to use technology where required is a decision, which is a critical decision, which you should take. Like Archana also mentioned, they know when to stop automation and when to start it, and at which touch points should we get the human to replace AI, right? Similarly, in your example, we should know what kind of audiences. We have to segment the audience accordingly, and based on our audience, we have to play our strokes. So different strokes for various folks. That's how the point is, right? So thanks for the insight, Sandeep. We move to a next question, which will be addressed to Mr. Navin Baid from Lenovo. So Navin, welcome. In the fast-paced e-commerce sector, how do you ensure that automation tools provide seamless customer experience without losing the emotional connection that human interaction brings? How does Lenovo manage this balance across a global customer base?
Thank you, Uday. And brilliant question. I mean, typically when you go to these conferences, generally you get questions in terms of, what's a human versus a bot, and how does that figure out into the overall context of running an organization or running a support center, etc. All of these, right? But here's where moving to a slightly different nuanced point about how do we ensure that we are able to capture the human emotion within the sort of automated world, right? And to sort of put maybe 2 or 3 layers around this, I think the first layer with an organization, or for us for that matter, how we look at it is at a base hygiene level. What is it that we want to ensure we are able to provide to the customer? And when I ask that question, I look back and look at my customer's journey and identify what are the moments where there is a possible failure for the customer to actually go about solving the problem they are coming to solve. And secondly, is it that there could be a possible failure at my end as a business end where I would need to go back and provide support to the customer. So it has to be both ways: understand the customer, understand your own sort of systems, processes, etc., and then be able to figure out where there are possible solutions which may go wrong, right? And when you do that, you understand that, hey, these are problems. If they happen, they would be at a scale where my human interactions, which will not be able to manage that. So say, for example, there was a huge semiconductor shortage way back. And the amount of escalations which happened was simply not possible for people to come back and look at it. The other example where a possible solution could arise is where you have an entire batch of products. Because it is tech, it is hardware, there could be a possibility that there could be some problem with the particular laptop for that matter. And this happened some time back, where one of the machines was heating up quite regularly. Now, to have our entire set of agents, etc., go back and try and solve for that with the customer is not going to be possible. Now, how do we ensure that whatever automated way in which we are reaching out to the customer, and it can be the most basic automated way of sending out emailers, right? It does not need to be something which is AI driven and all of those. Can I ensure that there is a capability for us to first empathize with the customer, to be able to give the customer ways in which they can further reach out if they have other problems, and C is to ensure that you have direct interaction with possible groups of customers where they could be not be in a position to actually reach out, etc. So understanding, being proactive, and reaching out to these set of customers, I think those are three principles we try and sort of put together in whatever process we are setting up. So that's one part in terms of ensuring if there is a service problem or if there's a product problem, how do we sort of ensure that is managed. The other piece which we often overlook also is the fact that within the journey you would have situations where the product discovery itself is a challenge, right? And in a situation for us like laptops, different people and different requirements would not know exactly what laptop do they need to go for, right? And generally for an e-commerce company, we would struggle with trying to find the right discovery for the customer, because the maturity of the customer would be very different. One customer is where they don't really know what they want. There's another set of customers who sort of know the specifications, and they would tinker around with either the search or the filters, navigation, etc., to try and figure out what product they need. And then there's the third customer who's absolutely dependent on someone coming in and telling them what do they need to buy. Now, one way, of course, is to have an entire agent team which then caters to customer demand and understands the requirement, etc. But of course, I mean, I cannot have maybe 2 lakh customers who actually visit my website to be able to be managed by a bunch of agents, right? And the way we've tried to solve for it, we have a tool called a PC Finder or a PC Pal, which actually asks a few questions to the customer, then sends out a few recommendations. Now we know through the journey of the customer whether the customer has actually gone ahead and made a transaction or not. And at that point of time, we come back with a human touch and then try and ensure that that sale is closed. So we try and sort of make it both ways, have the certain interactions or certain discovery on the platform using automation or tools, and then the other part being able to be managed by humans to actually close the sale. So that's how we're trying to sort of look at different touch points and different problem statements and try to solve them both from an automation versus a human angle.
Great. Thanks for the invite, Navin. So these tools which you mentioned are available on your devices, or it's generally available on any device?
So I think the tools which I mentioned are largely on the website, which helps the customer, or those are either telephone or through chat, which is available on the website. We've also have integration through WhatsApp, so the customer can actually reach us on WhatsApp and get the conversation going through automation, of course. I think the PC Pal or PC Finder thing was, again, it's sort of integrated with the website. I think the next level or the next leap in terms of what we are what we are going to get to do is very, very soon, almost about a week or two later, we are going to have AI-enabled PCs which we are going to launch. And that's going to be immense in terms of actually for customers to reach out and interact with us as well. So
Great.
That's the sort of roadmap as well for us.
Okay. So AI-enabled phones, AI-enabled laptops I heard today. So that's great journey. This brings to our next and the last participant. And this is very important because Mr. Rajesh Kumar is from Tata Capital. And the way we have seen the last 5 years, the ease of operations in financial businesses, maybe banks or NBFCs, has changed manifold, right? The ease which you can create a business account, a banking account, or a mutual fund account, you have seen no paperwork, no need to visit a physical center, right? So there's a different level of change. So with that kind of background, Rajesh, customer experience in the financial services sector is undergoing a significant transformation with increasing automation. In your experience at Tata Capital, how do you ensure that human empathy and understanding are not lost amidst growing AI-driven interactions?
Thanks. Uh, Obviously, all the questions related to balance between the automation and the human touch. In fact, the panelists before me, I think, have already answered some part of your question. However, I'd like to add to that. But before doing that, I'd like to ask the audience, how many of you believe in astrology? Okay. For me, I start believing it if it goes well. Don't believe in it if it doesn't go well. So it's basically how helpful it is for you as a person. When we talk of financial services, it's the matter of trust. People trust us with their money, either as a lender or as a service provider on a liability account where you have a savings account or a mutual fund. Balance between technology and the human empathy is like work and life. Have we able to find a right balance? Do we know the point where it is actually balanced? Or for that matter, home or a restaurant? So both coexist. So thing is, what I'm trying to emphasize upon is, let's understand where technology actually gives value to the customers and where human empathy actually is needed to serve the customer. It depends on, so in fact, Sandeep earlier told us, we need to know how and where we need to use technology, and also to know with whom we need to provide human empathy to actually calm him down. As Archana also talked about, if the customer is a repeat customer, you need to provide a human touch. And that's why you are evading the IVR. So what I want to say is, yes, technology, if it is a large vanilla or a normal kind of a question from the customer, you can depend on the automation or the technology part of it. As Sandeep also asked the audience, how many of you would like to call a person or to solve yourself if something goes on a mobile phone, right? So it really depends on the situation. It's our intelligence where, if we are able to find the exact point where we need to use the technology to create that customer experience, and where we need to provide the uh, human touch to enhance that experience. I'll give you an example. We all have gone through the COVID-19 about 3 years back, 4 years back. Financial sector was under tremendous pressure because of two reasons. One, banks were closed. All offices were closed. People needed money. No doubt we had technology to transfer funds and all those. But think of from loan point of view where customers had to pay the EMI. And he didn't have much money because a lot of people had lost job or were migrating or not in a proper condition because they had lost someone. What did we do? We used technology as well as human touch. Through the data, the automation was done to identify the customers who actually needed help at that point of time, so that they can be reached out and say, hey, don't worry, you need not pay for the next 2 months. However, you pay only the interest part as you wish, or you can pay the zero EMI. And that's also was supported by the government as well. That was the one aspect of identifying the data, automation of calls or the IVR or the SMSs or emails sent out to them. That gave them first, they calm them down. We also matched it up with, even during COVID, actual person. In fact, some of the key sectors were allowed to go out in the market, including the banking sector and financial sector. We risked our field force, our human people, reached out to people, went to their houses, even if from a distance, they said, we are there. Just to emphasize, if you have not read the email, please be there. You can let us just know for how many months you don't need to pay the EMI, or how much time you don't want to pay the EMI, and that's how we will take care. So what comes out is it has to be a fine balance between both of these. It only depends on the intelligence that we have to generate within ourselves as to where and how we have to use these individually or together. I hope.
Great.
That
Thanks,
answers.
thanks, Rajesh. So while doing this, are there when we take a decision whether automation should be interacting with a customer, AI tool, or a human? How do you decide? I mean, what are the threshold points when the AI takes over or the human takes over?
So if it's a back-end calculation, no doubt, and if the data is large, and the number of customers is huge, you have to go for the automation, because it becomes slightly erratic to just depend on a person to do it on Excel. So automation, AI, machine learning, and all those tools that we have at this point of time helps us to identify, as we were discussing in the other panel, the unstated need of the customer or the market. Once we are able to identify the unstated need of the customer or the experience that he wants out of an interaction with you, that then comes the point where you need to employ the human touch, because that trust the customer, if and again the whole word is about trust. If you are able to establish the trust customer has with your machine, well and good. However, people like Indian, we are emotional. We want to build trust with people. So it's the fulcrum or the point is, and also about the Gen Z or the older generation people, you have to keep a bifurcation between them. A 50-year-old person or a 60-year-old person may not like to be just talking to the machine. So it's the point, the intelligence. All I'm trying to say is build that intelligence to that point of balance.
Great. Thanks for that additional question, Rajesh. We'll have one more question if we have time. Okay, I think we are done for the day. I don't want to come between the lunch and everyone. So I guess we can call it now for the day. And thanks to the audience for their wonderful patience for this meeting. And equally thanks for the entire panel for this discussion. So thank you and have a good day.